right, so kind of what we're here today is just have a discussion. Ultimately, what we want to do is talk about what it's like to be black in a multicultural, multi-ethnic church. So
For you, it may be best for you. You've been a part of this church the longest, right?
I have.
And approximately how long have you been in a multi-ethnic church?
I've been in a multi-ethnic church I would say probably 35 years.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm 38.
Yeah, but you've been here your whole life.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So how do you feel when you first kind of joined the church itself?
Well, in all honesty, I actually joined because of your sister.
Yeah.
I saw like the balance she had in life. With Jasmine, it wasn't like just strictly this religious practice where you didn't enjoy life. So I was looking for something a little different and something that my like family could be in. Because with my wife, she just didn't come up in church the way I did. So just looking for something for all of us to embody. So we came here and I was like, yo, this is kind of cool. It was different having a white pastor because I never, ever could see myself
I feel that.
under that. So that was different for me, but it come with the territory.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
With myself, I'm gonna be honest with you, I was in denial. I mean, that's not the type of music I listen to. That's not the type of people I usually deal with. I was raised up in church. I'm 35, and I'm telling you, like, raised up in church my entire life. Church from Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, revival, 2 or 3 weeks.
All day.
And I was like, all day. You know how it is. We talk about that all the time.
All day.
But being real, like I came, and I'm talking, I was in denial the first couple of services. This white pastor, he bringing it. I sat down, the whole music deal. I mean, I never listened to music. I'm like, man, that's whack. That's not me. They're not doing, they're not clapping. They're not, you know how. And then when we got to the sermon, I was like, wow. I felt different every time I left. And I was like, about the third service, I came to my wife. She almost fell out. I told her to sit down when I talked to her because she knew how hard-headed I am, how stubborn I am. And I kind of opened up to the multicultural ideal, and I said, hey, this may be the church that our family can actually grow in. And she was surprised because she was going one place and I was going the other. And like that kind of, I surprised myself, to be honest with you. It had to be God.
Hey, you surprise us every day.
Well, we got him to show up on time for church, so that's one thing.
Hey. See, for me, it was this perspective of like, I've been in church my entire life. I've only been around black people.
Yeah.
So I only knew one way of praise and worship or one way of discipleship.
Exactly.
And that only occurred under black leadership. So I wasn't accustomed to, other than TV, a white preacher. So I didn't feel as though like a white preacher could talk to me.
Reach you.
And I will never forget, it's probably about 2 summers ago, Pastor Dan, I was in New Orleans at the time. Pastor Dan did a sermon on mass incarceration. It was pivotal for me because I will not lie to you. I told my wife, I was like, look, you're probably not going to address this. And if you're not going to address this probably, he can't be my leader, my spiritual father, if he can't reach me on a societal level. So when he went into that sermon, I was like, I got to send him a text. Yo, you got me, because he was able to see both sides. He didn't make it where it's just like, I'm going all pro-black or all pro-white. He didn't make it that issue. He made it a justice issue. And if we can agree to justice on things, then we're in the right path.
So three themes that I've kind of heard you say, and just kind of we can throw it out there and have a discussion about it. So originally heard you say it was about relationships, or it was about the life that you live outside of the church. So it's the fruits of your labor. It was the action, not necessarily the words, that drew you. And then for you, to a certain extent, to what he was just talking about, I think about it's the truth. I think about the word of God and what it says. We've got to be open to hearing that, regardless of who the messenger is. At different times, different people outside of your experience. But I also think it's important for us to, to Tim's last point, we've got to be able to talk about what are real issues. What are we dealing with in society? Whether you're black, white, yellow, male, female, what are the issues that we deal with? Because at the end of the day, the church is the representation of the body of Christ. So regardless of what we go through every day, we've got to be able to take what the truth or what the word says and apply it to our lives. So for me, it's a little bit different in the sense that yes, you can say I was always raised in a ethnic, multi-dimensional church. But I would also say I never saw that because it was always the way I was taught or the lens that I looked through, whether it was my mom or my grandmother, even my father to a certain extent. Although I was raised in a multi-ethnic church, very much, historical black church, gospel music, worship, different acts of praise and dance is something that if it had not had the influence on my mother and grandmother, I would not be the man I am today. So you have to understand the foundations of that ultimately built who I am, and because of the foundations of how they were raised, they were able to teach me or lead me in a way that I didn't necessarily see a lens. I think it's funny that we talk about Pastor Dan because to a certain extent, Pastor Dan looks like the very prototypical Anglican white pastor, but the message and the way he conveys is a more emotional, gospel-based word that speaks to the way that a pastor in an African American or black church will lead. So it's from appearance, it's the cross of really both generations or both ethnicities that ultimately at the end of the day brings the word, and the word is what saves. So for me, I would say it's been a little bit of a different experience, but ultimately, that's not taking the black church for granted, or the foundations of the historical black church are very much an important part of who I am, or the way that I stand today and being the man that I am.
You made me start thinking about something when you said the typical way. Now, when we talking here, y'all know we're not putting down our black culture at all, and we're not upraising the white culture at all. At the same time, we're trying to compare the difference. And that, I'll be honest with you, I really was when that first happened. I was like, people may look at us like they're sellouts. Y'all ever think about that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, why?
Tim's used to that, though.
Well,
It's hard, man. It's hard being light skinned.
you are a little different. You're a little tone. But it made us really start thinking about the difference in this and like being raised up, having relatives and everybody that's pastors and everything. It's not that. Now, I started going to the African American church and black church as a routine. From when I was a baby all the way till when I was 34, 32, whatever, in my 30s. I went to church for a routine. My kids go to church, my wife go to church. We go to the same church no matter what. And it started being a routine. And, what really attracted me here is, the practical steps that's taught on how to live life after Sunday. Not saying that didn't happen in my other church, but it became a routine, and I was stubborn not to leave. And it kind of opened up a lot of doors being around the multicultural church and backgrounds, and also meeting real people. That was the biggest thing, meeting real people. Then that's really what got me here.
See, for me, and I got to give credit to my wife. She made
a lot of credit.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But she made it where I would become open-minded to join a non-black church.
Yeah.
Prior to my wife, I was pretty boxed in, like, this is how things go, because this is how I was brought up.
Yeah.
Via my wife, she you need to be more open-minded. So eventually you start to grasp those different things. So if the church is a reflection of what we want society to look like, if we say, hey, we want equality and we want everyone to interact with each other, but on Sundays, we're going to go to different churches.
Segregation.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, we practice it. We practice it every Sunday, right? But then I started thinking, I was like, man, if I can get myself in a situation where I'm interacting with different cultures and I'm starting to learn different things, then that is what society should resemble.
Yeah.
But the church has to initiate that. That way society will then come together and be like, man, look, we can praise God on Sundays. And then especially with TC, where we teach in like the small groups, right? Now I'm starting to interact with you outside the church.
So why do you think that is? Your point talking about, I think Lecrae has a lyric talking about the when you look at the church, it's oftentimes the most segregated place. But so why do you think that is? Why do you think more people are less resistant to step outside of what their comfort zone is?
Well, we're in the South. Now, if maybe it's up north, maybe we're speaking to something totally different. But in the South, everything is going to be segregated. From the schools we attend, at one point it used to be the malls, Cordova Mall versus University Mall. Everything that we do is segregated. Even the title of Christian music, whether it's gospel or Christian, everything that we do segregates the two. And that starts from deep-rooted all the way dating back to slavery and civil rights. Everything we push has always been to kind of segregate things, and we just continue to perpetuate that stuff. So eventually, you have to say, "Hey, we're not doing that anymore," and I need to start interacting, and then therefore our children start to interact, with different races.
Myself and you were in the corporate room, and you think about it, I started really comparing this as we talking. It's like in the corporate room, we're actually less segregated than churches, and that's kind of sad. To be honest with you, if you really start thinking about it, like we work every day with Hispanic, white, black,
Male, female.
male, female.
Won't even tolerate it in the corporate business.
They won't even tolerate it. I mean, it don't come up at all. But then again, and then we sit down at the barbershop or somewhere else and we start talking about the black and white issues, and then we feel like we're victims. I think a lot of times as African American males, black males, we think we're victims, and think it's not masculine for us to say, okay, to listen to our wives or separate our personal religion and all the above, and kind of come together as one. And I think sometimes we get that messed up with things. But what do you think about Forrest comparing corporate with personal?
No, I agree. The thing I would say is the part of the reason I asked Tim the question is because for me the answer goes back to why he originally attended this church.
Yeah.
So it's about relationships, and it's about the fruits of our labor, and it's about the action, the life that we live outside of a general assembly of people. So is that saying that things are all going to work out right? No. But that's saying, whether regardless of what your faith is, you have to make a conscious effort to be a better person. I think, as we do that, it gives us the opportunity to share our story, which is ultimately, what the gospel's called us to do. But for me, it's funny that you say that because, I think that it's twofold. So I think in the corporate world, we're very cognizant of it, but at the same time, we're scared. I'll never forget by somebody who has invested a lot in my life. He told me that if I wanted to get to the position that I wanted to be in today, that I may potentially have to change my appearance.
By cutting your hair.
So that's exactly what you're talking about. He was talking about cutting my hair, and this is somebody that's very accomplished. He himself is a minority. He's not African American or black. But he has military background, a bunch of different things that kind of go into it. So, part of it, I appreciated him saying that because he was looking out for my best interest and knowing that I wanted to be there. My initial reaction was, honestly, to get to the role that I'm in was not worth sacrificing who I was. I enjoyed the job that I did. I loved the job I did. And if it, I was going to work hard and do my best every day. And if it was in God's will, for me to step into the role that I step into through grace and, hard work, results, all the things that come along with it, then so be it. But, ultimately, at the end of the day, I wasn't going to change who I was to fit what expectation or mold was.
No, you just hit on something important where people are willing to tolerate you, but not accept you.
Yeah.
So
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So I understand you're black as in your color, but leave that out there. When we come in these doors, I need you to just fit the mold and then bounce, Whereas initially, honestly, I thought that would be a problem coming to a white church. Will they accept my blackness and everything that comes with blackness? So if you see me in church and I'm a little emotional and I'm not just here, is that going to be a problem? If I raise my hand and shout, it's like, hey, calm down. Is that going to be an issue? Because those are the different things culturally that we just do differently. And you just don't know how people are going to accept that. Question for y'all. Now keep it a buck. Have there been any challenges that you've had being a part of a white church or a diverse church, non-African American church, as a black man?
Yeah, of course. I think being real, the biggest thing is the music. And we're used to the upbeat, the putting the hands up, running around the church, and it's a little bit more reserved. It really is, But at the same time, I get the same results for his praise and spiritually wise. But at the same time, it is a challenge, when it came to open up myself to the music. You know, the hugs. It's different. You know, it really was. I mean, but at the same time, I've grown. And I'll be honest, I put on Hillsong all the time now. Drive down the road, you got a guy with dark tint on his I'm like, that's you?
Turn it up.
You know, Mr. You know, what a beautiful name. But I really, that was the biggest change for me was getting accustomed to the different style of music. But now I can, you know, spiritually wise, I mean, I get the same feel.
So, I mean, I think, you know, my personal opinion, I don't necessarily feel like I've had any challenges. I think it's important for us as humans to be diverse. So in everything that we do, so whether it's business, whether it's you're raising your child, whether it's athletics, whether it's socially, economically, you've got to challenge yourself to get a different perspective, you grow, because ultimately that's how you become the best version of you that God wants you to be, and you really truly discover your purpose and make a difference in the world. For me, I would say, so you're talking about music. So I have a heart of a worshiper. So it was one of those things that was birthed in me from my grandmother and my mom. So 75% of my day is worship. So regardless of whether that's Tasha Cobb, whether that's Christian hip hop, as they would call it, Lecrae, whether it's Triple E, whether it's Hillsong, whether it's, you know, I've got All Sons of God. I mean, I've got a real diverse background because I think there are different seasons that God speaks to you differently in. But for me, it's not necessarily about the style of music. It's about what is the message communicated. And it just goes back to, you know, like we talked a lot about relationships. So for me, it's the moments when you focus on God and what He has done for you in your life in that situation that the song's conveying. So different songs are going to say a different way, but at the end of the day, for me, it's about being thankful for where I am, the grace that He's shown me, and you know, this journey that, you know, I'm trusting Him to walk out every day, because it doesn't matter what kind of worship it is. You know, when you tune everything else and you focus on what the writer had penned to paper, what the true intention of the lyric is. That's for me where I find the connection. So it could be, I mean, it could be in my car, it could be at a barn meeting, it can be, you know, in a church, it could be, you know, in a prayer worship service. I mean, it could be anywhere. It could be stopped at a red light. So go ahead, Amy.
No, you hit it right on. I mean, you took the words. You couldn't have said no better. I mean, because like you said, when it comes to the words and what at the end of the day, are you worshiping? Or are you just trying to do what's traditional? And when I open my mind up, and this is what caused me to do that, and that made me a better person. Actually, spiritually wise, I've grown. And like I said, I started listening to the words, and I get them. I mean, Tasha Cobbs, Kirk Franklin, or either Hillsong, either or. You know, I'm involved just as much. You know, so
I'm finna take y'all to the dark world. So my most challenging time came probably within the last year and a half via social media. So when you're like Facebook friends with a lot of people from the church, I would see posts, comments on things that were derived around race. I would interact with these people on a Sunday, and you know, everything's love. You know what I mean? Everything's good. You never get any type of undertone of anything. But then you see something on social media. It's like, dang man, like, all right, I didn't know those were the same people. You know?
Got it.
And I had to have some conversation with my wife. Like, hey, Keisha, man, like, you know, I don't know. You know, like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this. So there's comes to that like fight or fleet situation. And what I discovered in that was, you don't grow being comfortable.
Sure.
So those challenges create growth.
Yeah.
I may not always see it your way. You may not see it my way. We can agree to disagree. But I put up a post once about this. Whatever we do as Christians should be done in love. So like I had to learn that even if I see something that makes me cringe, I still have to combat that with love. Otherwise, I'm doing exactly what I feel like they're doing.
I'm proud of you, man.
I know, man. Believe me, your sister to know his sister to know me longer than my wife has known me, and I guarantee you, she like Tim.
I'm about to drop a T.
But it really does, because I'm telling, it was shocking to me because I was like, man, like, is this a exception or is this the norm?
So, but I mean, I think you bring up a good point, but I think that it's about truly building relationships with people so that you can have a conversation. So I think it's a society. Our society, there's so many different things and views and opinions, whether it's politics, religion, social standings, and I think a lot of what comes from either from experience or from upbringing. So one of the two. So I think you've got to understand everything with a grain of salt. But what it does, I know you're competitive. What it should do for you is, make that competitive drive to say, okay, so and so posted this. First question would be, so what is our relationship? So if I feel like Tim and I have a relationship that's where it needs to be and we can have a conversation, that just gives you the opportunity to have the conversation. So that opens the door for both sides to either, share point of view, perspective, or, ultimately challenge both of you to grow. So, I mean, to understand why they said or why they believe a certain thing. And the other part of the conversation that's beautiful is it allows us to have a dialogue about, because my view of the statement, comment, perspective, feedback is coming out of my experience, but his perspective may be completely different. It may not be offensive to the point that it's offensive to me based on my experience.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's funny you said that. I'm not on social media, which I know is a little bit odd.
You old? It's not.
Yeah, it's okay.
You 38, almost pushing 50. I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
I'm the baby here.
Yeah, that's all right. But part of my, and I'll be honest, it's a limitation because I think social media is a way that we can connect and grow and develop relationships, whether it's our best friends that we've grown up with, or it's somebody brand new I meet on the street today. So it closes the mileage and the gaps. It removes the obstacles that exist in today's. But part of mine is old school thinking. Like, if you want to talk to me, then you'll find out a way to talk to me. I shouldn't have to be on social media.
Yeah.
And whether you're my best friend or whether I've known you forever. But what I was getting at is, I saw my wife's on social media. She was on Facebook or going through posts actually last night, and somebody, either their avatar or their icon, kind of piqued my interest because this is a person that I have great relationship with, and he is of a different race, but he genuinely considers me a brother. And whether it's through daily walks with him, or just it's one of those things that he sees me on Sunday, he tells me he loves me. But to your point, I see this avatar that's against what my experience with my upbringing. So, but so it goes back to the whole point of are he and I in a position where I can have a conversation with him? Absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of those things that what has my experience in the relationship been with him? Have I ever seen anything to indicate that he would feel this or act a certain way? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And if to a certain extent, it's almost the other side. But to also understand that your upbringing, your heritage is what it is. So we all have to see through a lens that ultimately in the ideal world that we say, so how would God view this?
Yeah.
And I think, ultimately that helps. Now, like we were talking about earlier, it's a journey. We're all going to make mistakes and work out. Yep. So it's one of those things that, I think if we as a society were willing to have more, part of having a conversation is having the conversation. But I think that we as a society have progressed. We're in a better place to have conversation. But the reality of a conversation is two sides. It's the part that you have the conversation, and it's the part that you're genuinely willing to listen and understand what they hear, not just the lip service, not just we're having the conversation, but while I'm talking to you, you're already thinking about what you're going to say to me. So I'm not genuinely invested in understanding what your true, word, or what are you truly trying to convey, so that way I can genuinely understand what it is, either the way you feel the way you do or the way you act the way you do.
Doug, I think it was this is around October. Miss Mickey, Alex, went to his mom and was like, hey mom, I'm going to Tim's house to go watch some superhero stuff. And she was like, oh yeah. In the back of my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, this white lady is about to allow her teenage son to come to my house. I've made it. I have made it. At this
Successful,
point, yeah, man, it came through, had a good time. Matter of fact, it was me and 3 white kids.
You told me about that.
Yeah, I was like, all right, man. All right, we rolling.
I remember laughing about that conversation.
Yeah, man.
Hey, so let me ask y'all something. I didn't grow up in small groups. And I know that's we done tossed that word around a couple of times. But when you say small groups, what are your thoughts on small groups, and what be honest?
Oh, yeah.
What did you really think when you first heard the word small groups?
So initially, when I heard small groups, I was actually on board with it because they had a basketball small group.
Yeah, okay.
So I was like, "You got basketball?"
That's why I
bet.
met you.
I was like, "Bet."
Yeah.
That's how we met. I get the hoop for church. Child, please, I'm in it, right?
Yeah.
But as time went on, and I started to understand more, because even with Pastor Brad, I got close to Pastor Brad through playing basketball.
Yeah.
So like when we connected, you and I connected, it wasn't actually spiritually.
It was.
It was just as a man.
Yeah.
This is how we connected. And then the spiritual element came from that, right? And then you reach the point that I'm your son's godfather, you know? So like you start building.
We can still pray for him about that decision.
Hey man, he ain't the wisest. Yeah. But that's the type of stuff you learn. And like I said, and that's why we were talking about through interactions.
Yeah.
You get in them small groups, and we've just led a small group. You're getting people from all different types of backgrounds, and we're all coming together, conversing. And some of it is some deep conversations about like interpersonal demons that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And once you start building those relationships, that's when it's less like, oh, he's black, she's white, whatever. It's just, no, that's Neil. That's true. You know what I mean? And that's how you reach that. And that comes through those interactions. So I think it's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely great.
Yeah. So what I would say is, personally, I think it's good, but I think it has to be a decision that you make on a couple of different levels. I think that small groups is healthy, and I think, to our mission, that true life change comes through relationship. But I think that we have to be honest with ourselves. The relationship and the connection you make with small group, you have to be willing to invest in that, to take the mask off enough, regardless of what you're doing, whether you're playing basketball, whatever, to see, for who you are, whether it's because you're out of shape or because you have shame or whatever it is. So I'm a little bit different because I've always been a believer in small groups. So I was behind the church in word. But in action, I made excuses for why I couldn't go to small groups because I was busy, family time. So small groups kind of fell below where they should have been.
Yeah.
And honestly, I had to quit making an excuse about why I couldn't attend a small group, even though I knew that life change come through relationships, and because I was invested in it, I supported it. But it's one of those things, like when I talk about supporting it, it was fourth on the list. So if church wasn't in the way, and then work wasn't in the way, and then family wasn't in the way, then I can do a small group. So but the reality of not making it a priority is, so we've got small groups, men, women, outreach, financial, all. So really to meet whatever is out there. But it's one of those things that if it's a priority, you have to make time to make it a priority. You have to take it. The thing I like about small groups, to what he was saying, is the people that are there are invested and committed to being there. Yeah. So it's not something that, if you don't want to be there, you're not going to want to be there. And there are going to be plenty of nights that you're not going to want to be there, but because you made the commitment, you're going to come. And it's oftentimes that, God speaks through someone or a situation at that time that is able to help you in the situation that you're in. But for me, it's one of those things that, 2018, I made it a priority. So I've got to set time aside as I build my schedule, so that way it makes sense. Because at the end of the day, we all have to be healthy individuals. It has to be a balance. It can't be a situation where, church is the most important thing, and then you neglect your family. Or you focus on family and you neglect your own personal growth, your own personal development. So it's one of those things that we all have to work together. And the beauty of it is, in small groups is where you build those relationships to help foster that. So if I want to be the best individual that I want to be, then I need to be in a small group, regardless of what it is. I may not know how to play basketball. I'm just using that example.
I know you whack.
It's okay.
It's cool.
Yeah, we saw you catch the pass. But anyways, exactly my point. Or not catch it for that matter. But it's one of those things that ultimately so for like this semester, it wasn't about me. So it wasn't about what I wanted to do. It gave me an opportunity to meet other people that had a common interest. So, whether it's Man Talk small group, whether it's, the financial planning that you and Justin are leading, whether it's, different small groups that I have to say, it's not so much about me, but it's about an opportunity to be around a group of believers, so that way I can, either build relationships, invest in other people, but ultimately fulfill the purpose that God has for me.
One thing I would add is, so everything that we just spoke about embodying as far as the comfort we feel at a diverse church.
Yeah.
And all that is a reflection of the leadership.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you go from Pastor Dan, even himself having a diverse family.
Yeah.
Then you get to Pastor Brett, as diverse as he is,
Yeah.
and it trickles down. So if you're in a pew and you see that the leadership is openly accepting and wanting diversity, then if you're on the pew, it's difficult to be like, man, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah.
When this dude welcome you, like, hey, look, Tim, True, Neil, I trust y'all with money. you know what I mean? Like, to that, come to my house.
Yeah.
Come eat food. Everybody come over and hang out, So when the leadership sets that tempo, it makes all of us feel comfortable to have our families.
Yeah.
And continue to thrive at TC.
Sure.
I went from not believing in a small group to, like I said, going to the basketball. You introduced me to Brad, and I was like, man, this something I can do here. I haven't played in years, but I played.
Yeah, you were trash.
And I had to go out there to school a little bit, got that starter. Game. We won't get into that.
He looked good though.
Yeah, he definitely
He might be
on.
he might be the cleanest one on the court.
All Jordans.
The guy that wear the Jordan, the Nike socks and all that. But I wouldn't have looked at Brad as being a pastor or executive pastor at the time. He was very down to earth. I mean, he played ball with us. He was just real open. We clowned him.
So he was hooping you, is what you're saying?
He was out there.
He was out there, Then I went from being in that small group to actually leading. This is my second small group I'm leading here. And through that, I actually started building relationships. Myself and Tim actually built a great relationship along with others right now. And kind of like piggybacking on what you said, to not repeat the same thing, but we built a relationship, not only spiritually, but naturally also, and started to get to know people. And that was life-changing all by itself. And actually, we cater to one of the groups of people right now every Sunday. And that was life-changing all by itself.
So I just want to say thank you to both of you guys as brothers, but also as through leaders in the church. Just really talking about really something I feel like we need to address more, not only within the church, but within the society as a whole. Like I was talking about earlier, we all have to be willing to have a conversation. So thank you for coming together just to talk about really your experience and what's on your mind, and how you see, our role that we play within society.
We killed that. We killed that.